Okay, so for decades now, the US and Iran have been locked in this really tense standoff. But if you look past the headlines about nuclear deals and military threats, you'll find there's a much deeper economic battle going on. And today, we're going to break down what this is really all about.
So why the obsession with Iran's nuclear program? I mean, you might not know this, but the US actually gave Iran its first nuclear technology way back in the 1950s. So what gives? What changed? Well, to understand the real fight today, we have to look past the weapons themselves and focus on the economic system they threaten.
And that system is called the petrodollar. Now, according to the source we're looking at, this isn't just about who has power in the Middle East, it's about the very foundation of American global power, a financial arrangement that has quietly shaped our world for the last 50 years.
Now, that is a huge claim, right? The idea that one single financial concept could be the hidden key to understanding not just the US-Iran conflict, but maybe even past showdowns with leaders like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. So, what exactly is this petrodollar system?
Well, it all started back in the early 1970s. See, the US dollar came off the gold standard, and America needed a new way to make sure the whole world still needed its currency. The solution was kind of genius. Peg the dollar to the world's most essential commodity, oil. The US made a deal with Saudi Arabia, the big boss of OPEC.
And what this created was this kind of perfect self-sustaining loop. First, if you want to buy oil, you have to use US dollars, no exceptions. Second, the oil-producing countries then take all those billions of petrodollars and invest them right back into the US economy. And third, in exchange for all that, the US provides military protection for those countries. It's a system that works out great for everyone involved as long as you play by the rules.
So the big takeaway here is really simple. Demand for oil became demand for dollars. This constant worldwide need for dollars is what has allowed the US to finance its massive government and military, cementing its spot as the world's top superpower. But one country would eventually rise up to challenge this entire system.
And here's the crazy part. The country that would become the biggest challenger to this system, it was once one of America's closest allies in the region. To understand how Iran flipped from being a partner to a major adversary, we have to dig into a really long and messy history of mistrust.
Okay, so this all really kicks off in 1951. Iran's prime minister decides to nationalize the country's oil, basically take it back from the British. Well, the US and Britain weren't having it, so in 1953 they staged a coup and put their guy, the Shah, back in power. But doing that, well, it planted this deep seed of resentment. And that seed just grew and grew until it exploded in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which was all about rejecting American influence. Then, when the US backed Iraq in the horrible Iran-Iraq War, that pretty much sealed the deal.
You have to understand, for a lot of Iranians, that 1953 coup was the original sin. They saw the US talking about democracy while at the same time overthrowing their elected leader to install a puppet. This isn't some dusty old history lesson for them. It's a living, breathing wound that still fuels anti-American feelings to this day.
So after the '79 revolution, Iran's new leadership wasn't just content to stay within its own borders. No, their goal was to export their revolutionary ideas across the entire Middle East. And that meant directly challenging the US-backed monarchies in places like Saudi Arabia. You know, the very countries at the heart of the petrodollar system.
And that, right there, brings us pretty much up to the present day and the whole nuclear standoff. From Iran's perspective, this program isn't about being aggressive, it's about pure survival. But from the US perspective, it's a threat that just cannot be allowed to happen.
Think about it from Iran's point of view. They watched the US invade Iraq and take down Saddam Hussein, and they learned a really, really important lesson. They saw that North Korea had nukes and was pretty much left alone. Iraq didn't have nukes, and it was invaded. So in their eyes, the only real insurance policy against regime change is getting a nuclear weapon.
And for the United States, this is the absolute nightmare scenario. I mean, think about it. A nuclear-armed Iran, you can't bully them with military threats anymore. They could suddenly decide, hey, we're going to start selling our oil in euros, or maybe yuan. And if they do it and get away with it, what's to stop other countries from following? The whole petrodollar system and all the American power that comes with it could start to fall apart. Look, Iran knows it can't go toe-to-toe with the U.S. military. I mean, the U.S. budget is bigger than the next 10 countries combined, so they don't even try. Instead, they've become masters of asymmetric warfare, which is just a fancy way of saying they find clever, cheap ways to cause a lot of expensive damage to a much stronger enemy. Okay, get this for comparison.
Iran can build and launch a drone for about $20,000, the price of a new car. Now, to shoot down just one of those cheap drones, the US might have to fire a missile that costs $4 million. You see the problem here? It's economic warfare, pure and simple, designed to bleed a superpower dry.
Iran also plays a really smart game, using its natural advantages. It's got mountains that make it incredibly hard to invade, it has a whole network of proxy groups that fight for it across the region, and it has a powerful arsenal of missiles and drones. But its ultimate ace in the hole? It's just geography.
20%. Just let that number sink in. 20% of the entire world's oil supply has to pass through one single, narrow waterway that Iran basically controls, the Strait of Hormuz.
What that number means is that with just a handful of mines or missiles, Iran could literally shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They have the power to put a stranglehold on the world's oil supply, spark a global economic crisis, and basically attack the petrodollar system right where it lives. That is some serious leverage.
And so all of this leads us to the incredibly dangerous stalemate we're in today. On one side, you have the US, which believes that a nuclear Iran would be the beginning of the end for its financial dominance. And on the other side, you have Iran, which believes that without a nuke, its very survival is on the line. Both sides see this as a fight they absolutely cannot afford to lose.
So at the end of the day, the core of this whole conflict, according to the analysis we've looked at, really is the petrodollar system. Iran's push for a nuclear weapon is seen as the one thing that could bring it all crashing down. And that just leaves us with one final, really unsettling question. In this high-stakes game of chicken that's been going on for decades, what happens if one of them finally blinks?